Happy Camper Radio starts in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome back once again to the Happy Camper Radio Show, where we will make a happy camper out of you. I'm Skip, and I'm glad to have you on board. It is episode 96, and we've got a very interesting topic of discussion today, and I'll be running that by you here in just a little bit. Our phone number here at the show is 404-537-2267. That's 404-537-CAMP. If you'd like to get in touch with us, if you have a camping question, a comment, anything in the world of camping is open for discussion. If your camping question is all it is, then definitely leave it to us in a voicemail, and we will get you on the program next week and answer your camping question for you. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Camp Talker, add us to Circles on Google+, and now subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel. There are so many ways to enjoy the Happy Camper Radio Show. At home on a cold winter night, or out on the road, maybe even at the campsite. You can take us along with you anywhere. It is Pet Day, incidentally, here at the Happy Camper Radio Show. Why do I say that? Well, we've got our pets in the studio, and they're being very quiet. Most of them are sleeping. I opened up the studio door because they all wanted in here this afternoon as I was recording the show, and I finally said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So let me see. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 cats, and right behind me, even though I can't see them, is Harper the Wonder Dog. Yes, the pit bull is in here. And these cats keep him in check, folks. I wish I had someone in here to take pictures so I could share them right now on social media as I'm sitting behind the microphone, sitting here talking, and they are just, they really could care less. They just want to be here in the nice, warm studio. And folks, and speaking of warmth, I know there are some places now across the country where people are enjoying the warm weather, where they are camping. We're going to be talking about one such place. It's our featured campground of the week, and I'll tell you about that at the end of the show. But there are some places, too, where folks just do not care to be right now. The Northeast is one of them. Now, I'm sure there are folks who live in the Northeast who wouldn't want to live anywhere else, and I can appreciate that. And some folks enjoy camping in this kind of weather. The cold weather doesn't bother me. It never has. I just don't like the heavy rain. I just do not like going home with all of my camping gear soaking wet and having to set it up either in the garage or out in the back when the weather is warm enough to air everything out and dry it out and then put it away. That is the type of camping I cannot stand. As far as laying in the tent and hearing some raindrops pat down on top of your tent, well, that's just about as comfortable to me as it gets. But, the big downpours is what I cannot tolerate and cannot stand. And I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. Hey, on today's program, I'm going to be talking to you about pocket knives. Do you carry pocket knives with you in and about your everyday walks of life? Or do you carry them with you at the campsite? Well, that's what I'm going to speak to you about today, and I've got some very interesting points that I'm going to pass along. But before I do that, I want to say hello to some newcomers to the program who joined us on social media. First of all, let's say hello to the folks at Teardrop in Ontario, Canada, to Jennifer Wheeler-Denard. They both like us on Facebook. Saying hello to Ashley Hubbard of Nashville, Tennessee. Lauren, also of Ontario. To Shane Dallas in Dubai, John Rogers, Floyd's RV in Norman, Oklahoma, Stuart Harding of London, England, and Mike Wendland. They all are following us on Twitter. Let's say hello to RV Resources, Andrew Ledford of Long Beach, California, to Gary Richardson, Corey Farmer Sr. of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and our friends over at Blue Seas Resort in Cables Beach, Washington. Thank you all so very much for joining us and being a part of this great Happy Camper Radio family. Are you in the market for some new camping gear? We've made your shopping experience so much easier, and all you've got to do now is log on to our homepage, www.happycamperradio.com, and right there on the homepage, we have signed up with some affiliates. If you're in the market for camping gear, I don't care how small or how large. If you're looking for a new RV or travel trailer, there are some great places you can go shopping. All you've got to do is click on the ad, see what you want, and if you find something there and decide to buy it online, just remember that you are helping to support this great Happy Camper Radio podcast. So check them out. There's some very reputable companies, and they're on our homepage at www.happycamperradio.com. Would you like to be a guest on our program? I'd love to have you. Drop me an email, Skip, S-K-I-P, at happycamperradio.com. You can also sign up for a Google Plus account. Just make sure that you add us to your circles. Today, like I say, we're going to be talking about pocket knives. How many of you carry them with you as part of everyday life? Some folks carry them only when they feel they have a need for them, like camping. Back in the day, and I am thinking now, how far am I going to go back? I'm older than most of you are, but I still got a pretty good memory, and I can think back. I was probably in my kindergarten years when I first got a pocket knife. Now, was I allowed to carry that knife each and every place I went? No. But there were times as I grew older that I was permitted to carry a pocket knife. I was brought up very well, and I had a lot of discipline, and I have a lot of respect for knives. I have a lot of respect for weapons. But today, a lot of folks get these items, some at a very young age, and are not educated on the safety factors. They're not educated on how and when they are to be used. And at the same time, I can say this, because I've been around and being in law enforcement like I have seen some youngsters who are better educated and well-mannered with pocket knives than grown adults. It's a sad thing to say, but it's true. Pocket knives are very common in the camping world. We all know that. They're about as common as sleeping bags. Almost every camper, both young and old, carries a pocket knife. Now, what can you use them for? And how often do you think you're going to be using them? I have gone through an entire camping trip and hardly ever once pulled my pocket knife out of my pocket. And there have been camping trips where I was using it all the time. You may be sitting around a campfire, and I don't want to say a campfire is a place to be bored. That is the place you're going to want to relax and enjoy great conversation with people around you. But sometimes the conversation can wander, and you may not be in tune with what other fellow campers in your party may be talking about. So your mind starts to wander a little bit, and you start getting a little bored. And what do? You pick up a stick, you take out your pocket knife, and you start whittling this stick. It may have no useful purpose when you're done, but it's something to keep you occupied, and your pocket knife will help you get through that one moment where things are just not appealing to you. You could be using that pocket knife at camp to maybe trim a rope. You may also want to use it, and I have done this on several occasions, especially when I've got a big, thick, juicy steak. Yes, my pocket knife will come out to cut that steak. I highly encourage folks to bring their plastic utensils, their forks, their knives, their spoons. But you know as well as I do, if you've got a big steak right off the grill, those plastic knives are just not going to cut it. So you're going to want to bring out something that will do the job, and chances are your pocket knife will be there to do just that. Only problem I have anytime I'm cutting a steak, and of course I use paper plates too, it's all disposable stuff, things that can be thrown on the fire or thrown in a plastic garbage bag to be disposed of properly. I end up cutting into that paper plate. Chances are I'm going to be sitting there at the picnic table, and I'm cutting through the steak, I'm cutting through the paper plate and into the picnic table. And it doesn't do any good on your blade in the event you're sitting at one of those concrete picnic tables. But yeah, that happens too. Back in my scouting days, let me step back here just a little bit. I'm going to go back into my Cub Scout days. I can remember being a Cub Scout. I was in the first grade, And any time that we had a Cub Scout meeting, whether it be at somebody's house or maybe the monthly meeting at the church where all of the dens got together, anytime we had a meeting that day, we would come to school wearing our Cub Scout uniform. And back in my first and second grades, I can recall several young boys being involved in scouting. Now, they were not all part of the same den that I was, but they were all part of the same group. And we wore our uniforms that day with pride. We had our hats, we had our uniforms, we had our pants, we had our Boy Scout belts, and yes, folks, we carried our pocket knives. Believe it or not, back in the days, we could carry our pocket knives to school, and they were hanging from our belts. They were not in our pockets. They all had the Cub Scout emblem on it. I can even remember the first time my parents took me to the Cub Scout store where we bought the uniforms, and of course that's where we bought all of the patches and all of the awards and everything that we earned that they could be sewn on. And a lot of the mothers, they were good about sewing, and you always had those patches put in the right place. But when we went to school, we all brought our Cub Scout knives with us. Every one of us were disciplined back in those days too, and the schools knew it, and the schools didn't have a problem with it. Back in the day, you didn't take out that pocket knife and show off the blade. Your pocket knife stayed in its place. It was part of the uniform, and there was never a problem. I can even tell you this. Back in those days, kids respected each other. A lot of kids who were in Cub Scouts went to school with other kids who were non-Scouts, and nobody got picked on. You didn't have a problem with bullying like you did today. You didn't have the problem back then with some kids getting picked on because they were wearing a uniform and other people were jealous, and you know how that goes. It's a much different day and age we're living in today in comparison to what it was back then. You think about this. If your kid went to school today wearing a Cub Scout uniform, several things you need to be concerned about. Number one, is the school going to allow your child into class wearing a uniform? Is it going to violate the school dress code? Is your kid going to get picked on because he is wearing a Cub Scout or a Boy Scout uniform? And think about this also. If your kid went to school today and carried a pocket knife, a Cub Scout or a Boy Scout knife, whether in his pocket or attached to his waist, he would be going to jail. The police would be called. Criminal charges would be filed. He would be suspended from school, pending expulsion. Yes, this is a much different day and age we're living in today in comparison to what it was like back then. And it's sad. It really is. And it bothers me to think that, where have we come in life? That nowadays, kids get involved in scouting and all of a sudden it's a problem. Scouting is very popular today. Our Saturday night church service, we have scouts that are there because a lot of them got a meeting maybe once a month, and they show up in their uniforms. And I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud to see them. Scouting has a useful purpose. I have not seen one kid that went through scouting that turned out to be bad. I really think more and more children ought to be involved in it. But we all knew when we took our Cub Scout or Boy Scout knives to school, it was a part of the uniform. It stayed on their waist. In fact, there wasn't a fascination with guns and knives back then like they are today. You have kids looking to get their hands on anything in the form of a weapon. And I don't know why that is. Maybe the movies have a lot to do with it, the type of movies they're making and the type of discipline that's being handed out today. It's a much different world we're living in, like I say. But, pocket knives, they do have their purpose and they do have their use. They come in a variety of styles, lengths, and designs. The most popular type of pocket knife that I enjoy, and I have one, And folks know I don't carry it in my pocket because I have another knife in my pocket. But this one I have had for several years, and I carry it, believe it or not, in my lunchbox. And it is a Swiss Army knife. How many of you own a Swiss Army knife? Very, very popular. Makes a great gift, too. And a lot of them contain multiple blades. You can buy just a simple Swiss Army knife that maybe has 1 or 2 blades to it. Then you can buy this whole package that it contains multiple appliances like screwdrivers, bottle opener combos. That's my favorite. Then you've got the kind that just has maybe a can opener and a blade to it. There's some even have more features than this. But the only problem is, the more features that are attached to the Swiss Army knife, the bigger and bulkier they become. I have seen knives that have the fork, knife, and spoon combo on them. All right, if you want to bring that along, you can do that too. I think I've seen some of those when I was a scout. But, the Swiss Army knives are very, very popular. I enjoy mine. I, like I said, carry it in my lunchbox, and I have a use for it. As an adult, I, for the most part, carried a pocket knife just about everywhere I went. Now, I hadn't done so in recent years until one was passed along to me as a gift by a very good friend. I had not seen him in several years because we worked together and we both retired. He retired just before me. He moved to North Carolina. I stayed here in Georgia. And one weekend, I had nothing to do, and he got on the phone with me and says, hey, if you're not doing anything this weekend, come on up. And finally, I made that trip. And we went out, we did some things, we had a good time. And when we got back to his house, he was quick to show me his knife collection. Some people do collect knives. And he had asked me, he says, do you carry a pocket knife with you? And I says, not typically. He says, here, you do now. And he gave one to me. And I have carried that knife each and every day ever since. Just about anywhere I go, I've got that pocket knife. In fact, it is just as common today for me to get up, get dressed, put my wallet in my hip pocket, my change and my keys in my front pocket, and that pocket knife going either in the right or left-hand front pocket. It's just part of everyday life for me. And it comes in handy. It really does. You think about the pocket knives that you have. Some people polish them. Some people sharpen them. They keep them just as readily available as any other thing that they carry with them. Some people even collect knives just like they would comic books. And you're always going to find a useful purpose for it. The most common use I have for carrying a pocket knife today, folks, believe this or not, is working the hours that I do. And I'm a night owl. And coffee is very important. It's a very important part of my workload. Some people say coffee's not good for you. Well, I tend to disagree because I put away maybe about 7 or 8 cups a night. Been doing it for many, many years. Hey, and I'm still around, and it keeps me awake. The only problem I have is opening those bags that contain the little pouches that go into these modern-day coffee machines. For the life of me, I just cannot open them up. So I have my pocket knife, and I slice that bag right open, and I can get those pouches of coffee out. It comes in real handy. At least once a night, I will be using it for that purpose. And, of course, any other typical issue that may come along that requires the use of a blade, well, then I will go ahead and make use of my pocket knife. Now, in most jurisdictions, it is legal to carry a pocket knife depending upon the length of the blade. I encourage each and every one of you to find out what the law is in your area to make sure that you're not running afoul of the law. That is the last thing you want to do. You don't want to have problems with your local police. You will find, however, that, the pocket knife with maybe about a 3-inch blade, I'm just speaking for this area where I live in here, this state. If you've got a blade with about a 3-inch length, then you're not going to have a problem. But if the length of the blade gets any bigger than that, then it may be considered a concealed weapon. And concealed weapons, as we know, just like firearms, they do require a permit. So just make sure that you're not running into any problems with the law. Take the time to research it and find out exactly what the requirements are in your area. You never want to take the knife out and wave it around or threaten anybody, regardless of how big or how small that knife is. This will get you a ticket to jail in a heartbeat. So don't do that. Don't bring out the knife. Don't have your kids bring out the knife and show it off, because oftentimes we don't know who our kids are associating with. I hate to say it. I would like to think that each and every one of us as responsible parents know who our kids' friends are, but you just never know when your child may be around somebody who is going to be a bad influence. You may trust your child with a pocket knife. I'm sure you don't allow your child to take a pocket knife to school. You know what the consequences would be. But let's just say you're in your neighborhood and your kids are outside playing and your kid just typically carries a pocket knife with him. Well, you don't want your child to be running around somebody that he or she should not and end up having that knife taken away from them. So, you've got to be very careful. You got to be mindful of your kids. And I always made it a point to educate my children to make sure that they made good, conscientious decisions, regardless of what they do and where they go in life. Now, there are some larger knives that we need to concern ourselves with. If you're anyone like myself, I do have a couple of different knives. Like I said, I've got the pocket knife that I carry in my lunchbox. I have the one that I carry in my pocket. But I also have one that I like to wear around the house and definitely wear when I am camping. And it is a buck knife. Have you ever seen those? You can find them in the online catalogs, and you can actually order them right online. I believe you can. But I bought mine in a store. And as much as I like shopping online, I also like browsing the big box camping stores. I could spend hours and hours in there and always looking for something new. I've got quite a bit of gear in the garage, but I'm always looking for something out there that just stands out, and I say, wow, I would just love to have that. And you never know. I may walk into the store the next go-around and find a knife in there that I do not have and may end up pulling out the plastic and buying that too. You just never know. But the larger knives come in a variety of different sizes. A lot of them are used for things like hunting, fishing, and survival. Now, some of these will have very long blades. Some will even have saw blades attached to them. The larger knives are going to carry different restrictions in comparison to the pocket knives. So again, it's going to be important for you to check with your local authorities in your area about the laws and what they have to say regarding the use of knives, pocket knives, larger knives, whatever the case may be. And you want to take time to educate yourself with the concealed carry laws. Now, oftentimes the concealed carry laws, they're going to vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. If, for example, you are backpacking and you are dressed like a backpacker, you've got a backpack on, you've got a sleeping bag, and you've got your hiking shoes on, and a law enforcement officer stops you to question you for whatever the case may be, they may see that you're carrying a knife. And the way they look at this, most of them, most conscientious law enforcement officers will understand that you are engaged in a certain activity that allows most people like you to carry a knife. So I don't think there's going to be a problem there. But again, if you've got a very large knife, something that's going to really stand out, they may question that. Not to say that you're going to be arrested, not to say you're going to be given a citation or anything of that nature. But, you just want to make sure that you are following the law. Again, like, if you're with the Scouts, if you're with the Boy Scouts or the Cub Scouts and you're going to a scout meeting with a bunch of other scouts and a parent is taking you and you've got your pocket knife with you, well, you are dressed as a scout. It is definitely a thing in the community that the folks know about, including law enforcement officers, that you're getting together once a month for this meeting. All right, they see that you are going to be engaged in a certain activity. It's just not like you're just out of the blue, you're a suspicious individual. You're not going to have too many problems. But again, like I say, try to educate yourself and get as much information and knowledge about the law as you possibly can. Knives should always be carried in a case. In the event it's just a pocket knife where it's, folded up, the blade is folded up inside the plastic case itself, then you're fine. But if it's one of those larger knives, say like a hunting knife, or a knife that you'd be using for fishing, which I don't fish, but I understand some of those knives are very, very sharp. They should be inside of a case. Safety is so very important. Oftentimes, these cases are going to be carried on your belt, and they are attached through a belt loop. Some of the long blades are also going to have, depending upon the type of knife, will have a rope or a string that attaches to the lower part of the blade that wraps around your leg. I call these your Rambo knives. I have one of them. Believe it or not, I bought one. I think I got it at an Army surplus store several years ago. I really had no use for it. I don't even know why I bought it. But it's in my camping supply box, and it's been there for quite some time. The blade's probably just as sharp today as it was back then. So definitely make sure that if you're going to be carrying a larger knife for whatever purpose, you want to make sure that that knife stays in its case for safety reasons. Here's another important thing that I want to talk about. And this is something, folks, that I think each and every one of you should be educating your children on. Transportation. Knives of any shape or size are not permitted at airports. They cannot be taken aboard commercial aircrafts. They are considered a weapon and will be confiscated. The last thing you want to do, even though you may trust your child to carry a pocket knife and have never had a problem, you may not have educated them to the point, well, hey, we're going to see grandma or granddad. We're flying out of state, and here, you've got this pocket knife in your pocket. Your kid doesn't know it. They walk through the metal detector, the alarm goes off, next thing you know, you've got a problem. So, keep in mind that violators who are caught with concealed weapons at airports, number one, face losing the weapon. It will be confiscated. Violators are going to face fines and prosecution. What you need to do is contact your local TSA before you travel and leave your knives and other weapons at home. Okay, that should be a definite thing. So make sure your kids are aware that, just because, we're allowing you to carry your pocket knife, we trust you, and you're going out and about and doing what you're doing every day, you cannot take these things to the airport. Maybe the young kids just do not know that, and that's the last place they need to get stopped with a weapon. Here's a couple of safety issues I want to go ahead and bring up. Use common sense. That's the best advice I could possibly give you. Knives should be treated with the same respect as firearms. Adults should educate their kids about safety. You want to read all safety instructions that came with the knife. Some do, some don't, but if they do, make sure you read them. Be extra cautious when cleaning or sharpening a knife. Always should be done under the watchful eye of an adult. If you're using a whetstone or other sharpening tool, you want to remember to always keep the blade facing away from you and make sure no other individuals are in close proximity. Have a first aid kit handy, and if any injuries occur, seek medical attention immediately. It's time now for our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show. Oftentimes when people go camping this time of the year, they're looking for warmer climates. I even know the folks up in the New England states may enjoy camping in the cold weather environments that they are experiencing. And oh my heavens, have you looked at the pictures of Niagara Falls this week? It is frozen over. I have been to Niagara Falls before, and I have never seen it like this. Wow. What a sight. If you haven't seen it, and I don't mean to jump off the topic here, but go online and put in your search engine Niagara Falls frozen over. It is a spectacular sight. But anyway, if you're not into camping in the snow, you're probably looking for someplace a lot warmer than that. And we're going to go out to the state of Arizona, the same state that hosted the Super Bowl just a few weeks ago, and we found a campground that is open all the way through December 1st of 2015. It is the Houston Mesa Campground, and it is our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show. It's located in the forested northern section of Tonto National Forest. This is just 1 mile from Payson, Arizona, and less than 2 hours away from Phoenix. They have family, equestrian, and tent-only campsites. If you have youngsters who love horses, and what child does not, this is a campsite that you're going to want to visit. A campground that has a lot of great activities, and several miles of hiking and horseback riding trails nearby really add to all the excitement. The horse camping section, this is the Mule Deer Loop, is located across the street from the main campground and features 29 individual sites with tables and grills. The entire campground as a whole contains 74 campsites, and there are 17 tent-only sites for individuals who want a little bit more of a quieter environment. And they've got a lot of good amenities, a lot of the typical ones we talk about: campfire grills, or campfire rings, drinking water, dump station. Pets are allowed. Here's a couple things to know before you go. There's a 2-tent maximum for this campground. Firewood can be purchased on site, and something else you need to be aware of, they have a bear advisory in this area. They have seen an increase in bear activity due to drought conditions. So if you're going to be camping out in Arizona, particularly at this campground, you want to be mindful of that and pack all of your perishable items in bear-proof containers. You can find a lot of them online, and you can purchase them online too. So, and like I said, you just go to our website, happycamperradio.com, and it's a great place to start. So make sure you read all of the information. Know before you go. It's right on their website, and it's going to be under our featured campground section on our homepage all week long. It's the Houston Mesa Campground in Arizona, and it is our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show. And as always, if you have a campground that you would like for us to feature, definitely get in touch with me, Skip, S-K-I-P, at happycamperradio.com. Make sure you include a link to the campground website. I know if you've been there and you've had a great time, chances are you're going to want to tell the world about it, and we can help you do just that. Well, folks, that's about going to wrap things up for me on today's show. Thank you so much for being around, and I've got another great episode coming your way in just about a week from now. So stick around for that, too. Don't forget, you can catch us online anytime at www.happycamperradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Camp Talker, and add us to Circles on Google+. The Happy Camper Radio Show is a presentation of Skip Huber Productions. I'm Skip. I am a happy camper, and no question about it, my friends, we are going to make a happy camper out of you. We'll talk to you next week. Have a great one, everybody. This is Happy Camper Radio.